the problem I see now is there's an information barrier. I don't think people really know what's going on. I think that uh, Mendenhall was reelected because obviously she got more votes, but I don't think the Tribune was accurately reporting on what was
The
happening.
Salt Lake Tribune,
And,
first of all, did a horrible biased job during the campaign.
I couldn't believe it.
And it's documentable. I mean, in
So-
terms of earned media, Erin Mendenhall got 100% of what she wanted. We'd hold press conferences showing that she and the governor were misleading the people of Salt Lake City by saying they're going to clean up the encampments and get people in shelters, when I had the proof.
Mhm.
There were no beds in any of the shelters, including the winter overflow shelter. We did a press conference in front of all these encampments, all these people still out on the streets of Salt Lake City.
Mhm.
I mean, great visuals. We had the blow-ups of the city's dashboard that you can get online showing 100% filled at every one of the shelters. Not one reporter showed up.
Mhm.
Not a word about it in the newspapers. And the Salt Lake Tribune has done a terrible job exposing what has happened with all the promises we hear from the mayor and her administration, and then what ends up not getting done. Like the Ramada Inn and 197 units there that could have housed 400 unsheltered people in our community. With what was promised to us was the wraparound services and the housing.
Yeah. And with the time we have left, I just wanted to point out how as soon as the Salt Lake Tribune reported that Keith Warburton wasn't given the city permits, he was given, according to Keith Warburton, I mean, $11,000 water bill every month, and the city wasn't permitting him to develop his property. But then he went silent. The Tribune went silent because we learned that the Miller family bought that property. It's going to be right across the street from the Major League Baseball stadium.
Yep.
And it was like, oh, no fly zone. We don't talk about the Miller family in a bad light. And that was it. And Keith Warburton, I tried to reach out to him, like, let's hear the rest of your story. I think he got hush money, basically, probably a few $1,000,000, and he's just out of the picture. He's buddies with Wayne Niederhauser. I found that out by going down to City Place Apartments. I really wanted to report on this, but again, I'm told, oh, you don't go anywhere where the Miller family's involved because they run the city. So it's like, how do you get this information?
So we were promised that Ramada Inn would be open, all renovated and open with 197 units. Plus there's some concrete pads that people could have put trailers on. Mm-hmm. So for over 400 unsheltered people, we were promised by the mayor that would happen by a year ago, last April. Mm-hmm. And then it didn't happen.
And it was a huge disconnect between what she was saying to the public and what she was doing, or her administration was doing, not allowing Keith Warburton to develop property.
Well,
that it wasn't getting out.
He uses that excuse.
He does, and maybe that's just an excuse.
I think what happened is the Miller Group came along and offered him several millions of dollars, and he found that a lot more profitable than building housing for unsheltered people. Mm-hmm. So the rug was pulled out from underneath that project. The city wasn't cooperating. The Millers came along with this enticement for the developer not to move forward. But what I found so appalling, I'll never forget the date, September 26th, September 28th. I had debates with Mayor Mendenhall, and she lied to everybody, including the media, who you're the only way that people in the public are ever going to find out about anything that's going on. We have to have it in the media. She said explicitly, they are still under construction. They're at the Ramada Inn and also the medically vulnerable population facility in Sandy for 100 people. That place hadn't even gotten the go-ahead by the Sandy Council at that point in time, so there was nothing under construction there. And I held a press conference out at the old Ramada Inn, which was all fenced in, to demonstrate there's no construction. There hasn't been construction going on here for a long, long time, and the mayor just lied to everybody, making them think that this was still in process.
Yeah, so what's clear to me is the mayor's office, the Salt Lake Tribune, maybe the state legislature, they're all puppets of developers. The politicians seem to be puppets of the developers. And the information is not getting out there. And the people who are being detrimentally impacted by all this are the working class poor and the people at the very bottom, because no affordable housing is being built. There's nothing happening really. And so
and the business
I
community.
just don't see anything changing unless journalism is able to get a renewal of support and people are able to suddenly get the truth outside of what the developers, politicians, I call them the good old boys club, wants you to hear. Yeah. Do you see any way that journalism could see a resurgence in the city? I mean, I used to love the Westview. It's a newspaper, very independent. I like the Utah Investigative Journalism Project, City Weekly, but it just seems like everybody's inside of the walled garden where you can't go outside of these.
I think City Weeklies, they're always pretty courageous and will expose wrongdoing where they find it. But, they've got limited resources. And what we used to see in the Tribune and what we see now is night and day. I went to the reporter that was reporting both on homelessness and on my campaign. I said, why are you never exposing to the public that this developer of the Ramada Inn has set this up demanding that he walk away with market rate rents? Mm-hmm. Why isn't this turned over to a developer that's doing it for all the right reasons?
So it was never in the interest of actually affordable housing. What you discovered.
No,
But we got to talk about this more. I've got a heart out, unfortunately.
Yep, I understand. There's so much to talk about.
I really thank you for coming on.
Thank you for getting the word out, because these things, the public needs to know, and we're not seeing it in the Tribune. We don't really see what is happening in government anymore. And without that, we don't have a true democracy.
Yeah.
We're all led around by the nonsense that is fed to us. And I've got to say that during this legislative session, I'm grateful for the Tribune and what they've exposed.
I am too. Fortunately or unfortunately, the Deseret News is very limited. KSL's basically the Deseret News. There's just not enough coverage. And the coverage there is, we appreciate it. We highlight it every day now in our top 5. But it's like, we've got to somehow support local journalism. And so I just encourage everybody. Utah Stories, obviously, we would love to increase our capacity of what we do here. But we're trying to find a model where we could have viewers, listeners support what we're doing. We have a membership model, whereas if anybody becomes a member, you pay $5 a month. We'll buy you a beer, our special event on March 15th. I'll buy you a beer if you become a member. So, because we want to continue to cover this. I went on a 3-month hiatus, basically because we had to raise funds. And so you can support us. I really appreciate all the people who are paying $3 a month supporting Utah Stories magazine. And I'm grateful for you coming back and fighting the good fight, Rocky.
Yeah, thank you. And again, people in the media who are really dedicated to getting out the truth are the real heroes. And all of us are indebted to you for helping get out the truth so we know the truth about what our government's up to.
Well, as much as we can do it, we want to do it. So, all right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.